I got an email from a user of Project Dog Waffle on asking how to paint clouds, how to draw clouds. And I thought this would be a good time to actually show some ideas on that. This user actually doesn't use PD Pro or PD Howler. He uses PD Particles, the entry-level product. And so I'll show you how to do that in PD Particles, but rest assured you can do the same thing in PD Pro and vice versa. If I show you something in PD Pro, sometimes, quite often, it depends on which tools I'm using. Quite often you can also do that in PD Particles if it goes to simply to painting with the built-in brushes, the internal brushes, and or with particle brushes. Now, one place to start also is to look here under the overview on the main website. Whenever you click on the on my icon, it will take you to the top level of the website, and the overview area is a good place, or you can scroll down a little bit until you see tutorials or downloads. Okay, so this will give you some places where you can look for tutorials. For instance, if you go to the overview here as well, there you go. There is some what's new, what's cool, what's possible, and a little bit further down you can see downloads as well. And when you're in the download section, you can probably find the tutorials in here. There you go. Alright, so in the tutorial section under thebest3d.com/dogwaffle/tuts, you'll see a collection of many and pointers to many other places that have tutorials. And we should probably add a few more like the ones on WikiHow. But there is some tutorials that were put together on CDs. You can buy these. There's also online free editions of those at slightly lower resolution, but great starting points. And there's some ideas here on how to paint clouds. So this would be a good place to start if you want to learn how to paint clouds. The thing is, there are many different types of clouds. There are different angles from which you're looking at clouds. They may be just very close up over your head, or they may be down far at the horizon with the sun shining from the side or behind it. Very different appearances of clouds. You may have a mostly gray bank and then some God rays breaking through. And then there's also clouds that you see from outer space as you're looking down on the planet. So there's many different ways and also styles. And you might need more of a cartoonish look with just 2 or 3 colors. Outlines and some fill colors, or you might want really something puffy, volumetric looking, realistic looking clouds. If you go around here and look, for instance, for PD Pro 4 tutorials, I'm sure you'll find something of value, and some of it may not be necessarily how to paint clouds, but it may be showing you some tools. Well, here's actually how to growing clouds that were recorded on a video with a camera, how to post-process that. Then there is also clouds that are perhaps in outer space. Again, volumetric clouds could be something a little bit more. There's animated clouds, desert heat, you know, how the turbulence for rising heat distorts it. So there's some great tutorials on those as well. Animated clouds, of course, if you have PD Pro, you have the sky rendering tool that can animate the clouds. And then sometimes you'd like to use some techniques that are also used in space painting. When you're doing, you know, space clouds, and a variety of other techniques are used there. Some of those also are applicable to what you would do in the painting of clouds on this planet. There's a few more here on PD Pro 5. PD Pro 4 had a lot. There's actually, you don't have to go look further here. There's space art. That's a good one to look at. You know, you change your colors and then suddenly you have clouds rather than space clouds. But the technique is very similar in many cases, so I encourage you to read those and see how step by step it takes you through the techniques that can be used to create sort of fluffy volumetric clouds, blur it out a little bit as you paint, and then you can pretty quickly see that, oh yeah, I can actually, you know, whatever looks like a space cloud could also be used for tiny little patchy clouds on your nature painting. Here is one more. We'll go into the ones that you see in PD Particles, the PD Particles tutorials. There's a few here that relate to nature painting as well, some advanced tips. Let's see what else we have that might be of interest in the context of painting clouds. Well, you know what, let's just dive right in. Let's go and start with PD Pro. And I'm going to use a tablet in this case. You can do that with the mouse, but I'm going to start drawing here a little bit, and perhaps I'm going to use the mixer for my color choices. There are many different types of many different options, different profiles, different color selectors, whatever you feel comfortable with. For instance, this one here, let's go with the mixer and just add a few more colors. So I'm going to go in paint mode and add a few more of these cyan colors and a few more of the dark blues, even darker. There you go. Okay, and there's probably some gray for the clouds in particular, so let me get some black in here as well and smear it around. So we got some gray values to play with as well. Smear it around. There you go. Alright, so let's go back to color pick mode, turkey baster. So now I can go and pick my, let's say, blue values first to give me a blue background. That's actually something you better do just with a color fill. And erase. So let's toggle these two and erase. So the secondary color being blue, now we can paint to that, we can fill to that. Then we can go back to the painting. Alright, so what brush to use? You could use an airbrush as a starter. The large airbrush is the default airbrush when the program starts. Something pretty useful also, there's a couple of oils without too much of the thick oil look. Experiment with those. The large tempera or the wet tempera might be useful too. Pretty opaque though, but so you may need to reduce the opacity a little bit. And then there's of course the watercolors, some of them dry opaque, some of them more sponge looking, and those actually might be really good starting points. So when you start with this and you have a light color, you may not even see much here until you paint over it really a lot. You see it's starting to get darker here. Alright, so let's do the following. Let's go from scratch with a airbrush. And you see all parameters here are pretty much eradicated, set to 0. And I'm going to go with kind of a medium gray color and create sort of a cloud outline that's going to be at the horizon. So imagine basically we're going to have some mountain scene in the front. This is nature painting. We're going to have some hills, some rolling hills. Maybe we're going to have some grass with the particle brushes. So we will definitely use the Optipo sticks, the particle panel as well when it comes time, when it's time to add some grass. For instance, the Batty grass preset, that would be really useful to show something in the foreground like this, right? But before we do this, we need to have the information, the picture in the background, and that would be our clouds. So for that, I will disable the particle brushes for now, and I'll simply go into my airbrush and draw something like a rough outline of my clouds as they are moving across the horizon, along the horizon. So this would be a good starting point. Now, one thing I would recommend is we increase the bleed. If you increase the bleed, it will basically make it look like the color is somewhat wet and coming back into the brush as you're painting over it. And then if you reduce the opacity, you can do that here as well. If you reduce the opacity, it will take more cycles of painting over it before it actually really shows its true color. So you can get an interesting look there where, especially towards the bottom side, it just remains relatively dark and has a little bit of the same tint as the color of the sky. You can certainly change that. If you get a blacker value for your color, it will get darker much faster, so you can get the shaded look there. The sun is shining from above, so generally the darker part of the clouds are going to be on the bottom, underneath it. Same thing here. So grab some of the dark colors and give it some basic area here. And then thanks to the bleeding, we really keep going with a fairly smeary look there. Okay. Now one thing I also should do is have a little bit of a randomness to it. Right now it's painting exactly where I'm painting. And one thing that might actually help is to give it a little bit, let it go out of control a little bit. So give it a little bit of random position. Okay. So that way it's not painting exactly where you're going, and it's actually probably getting the job done a little bit faster for this realistic look.